Blog Talk Radio.
Hello everyone, this is Lori Smith on Blog Talk Radio, and this is Child Abuse Prevention and Human Rights Abuse Prevention is Up to Us. It is January 8th, Friday night, 9:30 p.m. Calgary, Alberta time, and I'm glad that you're here to listen with me and share this information, and I hope you can get something out of it. I found the information very good. I thought tonight we would continue on talking about emotional abuse, and it's a great article, and I'll give you that website information in a minute. But this is a live streaming internet blogtalkradio.com radio show, and you're more than welcome to phone in if you have something you'd like to add, topic related, or you just want to tell your story and of how you survived and you made it and got out and got to safety, or if you suffered abuse and you just would like to share your story, please do feel free to phone in. And if you have a resource that's helpful for people, that's always welcome. And my guest call-in number is 917-889-3736. And we'll be on here for a half an hour. I also have my chat room up and running, so there's lots of information typed up in there. If you would like to sit in the chat room, I have just some resources typed in there that I'm actually reading from and working on right now that I found were very helpful, regarding emotional abuse, and I have some good websites for you as well. So, I'm just so happy to be here and just to be able to share this information, and it's, it really rings a bell with me, emotional abuse, and it's quite interesting to read what they have to say about it. It's good. I think it's really quite good information. I just want to start the show out really quickly. There's a petition that came to my attention, and it's a petition. It's to add cyberstalking to restraining orders, and I think that's very important, especially for people who are whose lives are in danger and they are in a domestic abusive situation. Maybe they've left their abusive partner, but this person can still access their computer and stuff, or is cyberstalking them, right? This petition can be found at www.gopetition.com, and it's called Add Cyberstalking to Restraining Orders. And I don't know, I signed it. I'm all for it. I think that's great. Internet stalking is a crime. It's a real problem, and it's an issue of life and death. So I would ask that anyone who's listening to the show would just go and take 10 seconds just to sign that petition. They need 5,000 signatures to make it a law, and they've got about, I don't know how many they have now, but the last count was 47. They still needed 4,700 signatures. So they've only got, maybe a little over 300 signatures, 400 signatures. So I would ask that everybody just please go sign that. Let's make cyberstalking, add that to restraining orders, because that is a really important issue. And I know myself, if I wouldn't want to be dealing with that. And, you want to put yourself in someone else's shoes and just realize how bad that would be if it was happening to you. So that's all I got to say on that. We'll just get started here. There's lots of information. I'm actually just reading right from an article I found and pulled off the web that was just so good. It's from Health Canada, and that website is www.phacc-aspc.gc.ca. And if you need that information, please get a hold of me. Please contact me. It's Child Abuse Prevention Resources on their website. It's called Emotional Abuse and Information from the National Clearinghouse on Family Violence. I was reading from there this morning just what is emotional abuse: rejecting, degrading, terrorizing, isolating, corrupting, exploiting, also denying emotional responsiveness, and it just went on to list all that stuff, and we went through that this morning. And I wanted to kind of continue on through there. There's a few pages later, there's a whole section on facts to consider, and this is so good. I just thought it really went into detail what children and adults, women, men, children go through when they are subjected to emotional abuse. People a lot of times just don't think emotional abuse is such a big deal, because it might not be necessarily at the time life-threatening, as physical abuse might become life-threatening at the time. Emotional abuse over time, can kill you. And so it's very, very serious. It's a real problem. And if anyone out there is suffering from this, I would ask that you would get some help. I'm not a counselor. I'm not legally allowed to give counseling or professional advice, legal advice, anything like that. I'm just one person who cares, who's on Blog Talk Radio, but I'm not a counselor. So if anyone is suffering from this, I would really ask that you would get help. And get the proper help and the proper resources by just calling some crisis lines or calling some of these websites that I have. They usually have hotlines. If you need more information, please get a hold of me. And otherwise, just go through the front part of your phone book and start looking up information for family violence, abuse, stuff like that right in the very beginning of your phone book, because it's so important. You can have a healthy life, you can have a good life, and really we all deserve it. It's our human right. And so I just thought I'd go through some of this information here tonight just so we can really look at it. Facts to consider. I'm reading right from the page. Emotional abuse of children can result in serious emotional and or behavioral problems, including depression, lack of attachment or emotional bond to a parent or guardian, low cognitive ability and educational achievement, and poor social skills. I mean, that's obvious. There's going to be behavior problems, and including depression and lack of attachment and stuff like that if there's an emotional abuse, if a child has suffered from an emotional abuse situation. One study which looked at emotionally abused children in infancy and then again during their preschool years consistently found them to be angry, uncooperative, and unattached to their primary caregiver. The children also lacked creativity, persistence, and enthusiasm because, if you're being emotionally abused and you're being, like we were talking about early, terrorized, and you live in a home where you're being rejected and degraded and terrorized and isolated, it seems to me that could happen, right? I know in my own home, there was a lot of emotional abuse going on, and it didn't leave a whole lot of room for positive growth. It was all quite negative. And so, you do develop because of these issues, right? So if you're someone who has suffered through that, make sure that you know that there's ways to get help. I mean, I just went through reading all those coping lists and ways to cope, and there's people willing to talk to you, people who are just waiting to help someone on these hotlines, and you can get onto these chat rooms and stuff and get some real help. It says, children who experience rejection are more likely than accepted children to exhibit hostility, aggressive or passive-aggressive behavior, to be extremely dependent, to have negative opinions of themselves and their abilities, to be emotionally unstable or unresponsive, and to have a negative perception of the world around them. And that's pretty obvious, right? Parental verbal aggression, for example, yelling, insulting, or symbolic aggression, for instance, slamming a door, giving the silent treatment toward children, can have serious consequences. Children who experience these forms of abuse demonstrate higher rates of physical aggressiveness, delinquency, and interpersonal problems than other children. It says children whose parents are additionally physically abusive are even more likely to experience such difficulties. And in that case, that was my case, because it was both emotional and physical abuse. And, you really, it's not a healthy way to raise your children. And if you were brought up like that, please just know that you can move past it. You can get help, and just make sure you keep reaching out and keep reaching out. Children who see or hear their mothers being abused are victims of emotional abuse. Growing up in such an environment is terrifying and severely affects a child's psychological and social development. Male children may learn to model violent behavior, while female children may learn that being abused is a normal part of relationships. This contributes to the intergenerational cycle of violence, and I've seen that myself, in my own home, and also in my friends' homes, and where they just feel like that's okay for them, right? The abuse is okay, and they continue it on into other relationships, and it's just continued on, right? And it's a vicious cycle, and it's not good. And I just, my heart is just with everyone out there right now who's suffering. So you're more than welcome to phone in if you'd like. I'll give you my guest call-in number again. That's area code 917-889-3736, and I'll just keep going here. It says, many women in physically abusive relationships feel that the emotional abuse is more severely debilitating than the physical abuse in the relationship. So many women in physically abusive relationships feel that the emotional abuse is more severely debilitating than the physical abuse in the relationship. Because bruises heal. I mean, nobody wants to be beaten, and nobody deserves to be beaten. But I'm talking that if you were to ask a woman, they might say no, but what really hurt me was what they did to my heart, and that's the whole issue, right? That's the stuff that stays with you. I don't care so much about the physical abuse that I suffered, even though I did write it out in my blog just to be very specific about it. But it's what happened in my heart. It was just I really felt dead, and I really felt just really unworthy and unwanted, and that's what can happen when you just battered down with verbal and emotional abuse all the time, right? Repeated verbal abuse, such as blaming, ridiculing, insulting, swearing, yelling, and humiliating, has long-term negative effects on a woman's self-esteem and contributes to feelings of uselessness, worthlessness, and self-blame. And this goes for children too, right? And that's what I grew up with. And, insulting and swearing and yelling and humiliating, it's really, it causes you see yourself as what you're being told you are, right? And so, it's very serious, and it's a serious problem, and it really needs to stop. More people need to know that, how you treat people, it does affect them. What you say to them does affect them. They always used to say, sticks and stones, what's that saying? Sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me. But that's not true. And, I have a caller on the line, and I'm just going to take the call right now. Hi, is this area code 612?
Speaking.
Hello there.
Hi, it's Chris DAHL calling.
Hello, Chris. How's it going?
Good.
Good. Right on. I'm glad you could phone in.
I'm with the Parents of Murdered Children in Minnesota.
That's right. You have a great website there. And both of those websites were really good. Yeah.
And part of what my comment would be is how the domestic violence can lead into the physical side of it, and all the way into where the murders occur.
Yeah.
And I see it in our group. We see it a lot. Actually, about a third of the people in our group are grandparents raising the children when their daughters were murdered by either their husband or their boyfriends.
Right. And that's horrible.
And it is. And it was always a dominating domestic abuse situation that led up to, for different emotional reasons, whether it's jealousy, rage, or control issues, the woman ends up getting killed.
Right.
And then the grandparents are raising the children.
Right.
So we see the results of it.
You see the outcome, right?
Yeah, it's the ultimate form of abuse is for someone to end up dead.
That's right.
And as far as children that are abused by predators and either by bullies or by sexual predators or strangers, and all of those are forms of abuse where the human being abusing another human being.
Yeah, that's right.
And, so it's something that I think it develops over a period of time.
Well, I've read that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's patterns that get more involved, and they end up with somebody dead.
Yeah.
So people can't just think that if someone's abusing them or they have a partner who's trying to dominate them and control them, that it will escalate. And if someone's hit you once, they're going to hit you again. These are patterns, and
right.
So you just can't tolerate that happening, because there has to be an intervention done and professional help brought in, or it's going to escalate.
That's right.
Yeah, so
it's serious. It's not something to play around with, and that's the whole issue. People, I know it's hard because they're afraid, right? They're afraid to make that, just to actually make that step and get out of it. You know what I mean? Because because of the fear of the unknown. It's like, well, if I, maybe he'll change, and then there's always that pattern. They might come around and say, oh no, I won't do it again, right? And so they get them to stay, and then they're back into it, and it's just horrible, and it's going on all the time. We see it in the news. It's everywhere, and it's unfortunate. It's sad, really, And
the cycle of it. Yes, the apologizing, saying it's never going to happen again, and then the impulse of it occurring again. There's patterns that occur, and the victims don't realize what's going on.
Yeah, that's right.
They're desensitized to it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and almost because when you're in that situation, I mean, obviously you're not going to be thinking very clearly. I witnessed that with friends of mine who were in domestic violence situations, and neither one of them were thinking clearly. And you know, my friend who was being abused, she could not think properly because she was so it was so upsetting that, you know, they're not going to make the best decisions, right? And that's it's unfortunate that it has to get to that point. That's why, I mean, it's so important to reach out and make those calls and get that information, get on the internet, get on the web, start looking around to see who can, you know, how someone that can actually help you, you know. And that's what I'm just doing on here on Blog Talk, is just trying to get people to realize that, you know, they do need to reach out and make sure they get help, because they don't want to suffer and exactly lose their lives, right?
And
horrible.
Exactly. And the denial part of it too is if you're a victim, you're in denial. You don't think this is going to occur. You think somebody loves you and you tolerate it. And even if it's a neighbor or someone that's just getting goofy on you, people seem to think that it's not going to escalate, but it does escalate, and you do get desensitized to it, and it almost becomes normal if it's been occurring over a long period of time.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So,
yeah, that's very true.
When you're involved in it, you don't realize what's going on, so people have to reach out to other people.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's like all forms of I don't even know how to put it. It makes me upset just talking about it.
It is upsetting.
Yeah,
it is very upsetting. There's nothing good about it, and it is hard to talk about. That's why so many people, I think, find it hard to talk about, you know. And but it needs to be talked about. That's the whole issue, right? People need to talk about it. It needs to be out there front and center. You know, there's groups, all kinds of groups that I belong to, Dream Catchers for Abused Children, and the Silver Braid organization and stuff, and they're constantly bringing awareness of the amount of actual violence and abuse that is going on, you know, day to day in the U.S. really, and it's just crazy. And I'm like, whoa.
Yep. There's shame, there's guilt, there's blame, feeling it's your fault or you're responsible. There's all these feelings that stop you from letting people see what's going on. It becomes like a secret.
Oh, totally.
What's occurring, and I guess what I'm saying is people need other people. People need other people to help them make things change. People need other people to help them grow. People need other people to help protect them and find ways out.
Yeah,
and
absolutely. I agree with you.
There's people out there that want to help anybody that's in a situation that's unhealthy like that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's right. There's people that are there, and they're trained to do it. They know they know what the steps are. You know what I mean? To get someone to safety. And I think that's the important thing, is actually getting some good help from professionals who are trained and know how to get that person safe. You know what I mean? My thing is, I'm just like, call 911, get yourself safe. You know what I mean? Because I'm not a professional counselor and I'm not up on this stuff. But I know how to give people phone numbers and where to call. And you know, it's so important. So important. I was reading a little bit about, you know, making yourself a safety plan, getting yourself a safety plan. That was part of one of the Blog Talk shows I did not too long ago, just a few days ago. And it was really interesting because I thought, I mean, you know, at the last minute, you're not going to be able to grab some paper and read it. Okay, I guess I'll stop and read my paper. But if you have a safety plan in your head, you know, of what you're going to do just in case, right? And get out. That's my thing. You know, it's just not good.
It's about having choices and options. And when somebody's I don't even know what the right word would be. I don't want to call them predators, but if you're being dominated and abused, there's patterns of they like to isolate you and make you dependent on them.
Oh, absolutely. That's how they do it.
They'll distance you from your family and your friends. They'll
That's
try
right.
to make it so you don't have choices and options, because that
Exactly.
makes them feel powerful.
That's right, and they're in total control. Exactly.
And
it's
they can control you, and they can
Yeah.
dominate you. And this happens over a long period of time. This is
Yeah,
what
that's
I've
right.
seen with the victims.
Right.
That, I'm dealing with the aftermath of it, but everything's
Right.
talked about for a long time. And it's all these patterns. I look back and I see all these patterns in these families, and
Mhm.
and
Absolutely.
abuse comes in a lot of different ways. Whether it's bullying in school, it's peer pressure in relationships between a man and a woman, and same-sex relationships. It comes in every flavor out there too.
Exactly. Yeah.
And my thing is helping the families after there's a homicide. And I just hate to see so much of this stuff going on, because so much of it leads up to the homicides. 40% of the people that get murdered in the United States are murdered by someone they know.
Yeah.
And a lot of it has to do with emotional stuff.
Mhm.
For different reasons, they have these feelings, and a lot of it has to do with trying to control someone. They're not doing what they want them to, so the ultimate form of control is to kill. They end up killing them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's escalated.
Yeah, it's horrible. I know. Well, that happened to a friend of mine, and I didn't know. Like, none of us really. I mean, it was a shock, and we were just like, "What?" There's no. This is. I mean, how could that happen? We were her friend, and we had no idea. It was
Yep.
crazy.
It
Yeah.
sneaks up, and it's hidden behind doors. And I hope anyone that's in a situation like that will talk to someone else about it, whether it's a friend or a counselor, or someone at their church, or someone at their school, a teacher, a neighbor, an aunt, an uncle. Just reach out to other people, because it's the truth. Right. It's the truth that'll set you free.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
It's the truth that'll empower you to get you out of a situation like that. And if someone's abusing someone else, they need help. And
yes, absolutely.
They were probably abused at some point in their life. Someone did things to them, or controlled them, or bullied them. And for some reason, they were taught that this is something that can be done, and they don't really realize it's unhealthy. They seem to think that it's okay to do things like that to other people.
Yeah, it's just like a learned behavior, right? It's a learned bad behavior, right? And
exactly.
It's just a vicious cycle, and that's a lot of it is. I know that I don't have the statistics in front of me, but I know that that's a huge factor. I forget what the percentage is, but it's high, the amount.
Yes. So if someone's not treating someone right.
Yeah, exactly.
And you care about them. You don't want them to get in trouble because you love them and you care about them. The ultimate thing for you to do is to get them help so they can learn healthy behavior instead.
If you can, yeah, that's right. Like, I mean, that's what I mean. Wouldn't that just be the ultimate, though? And if everyone could get their partners or their parents or whoever to get the help that they need, right?
Well, I mean, you might need to call the police, get laws enforced. You have to force them, and it's like someone that's a drug addict. You have to carry them into treatment, kicking and screaming.
An intervention.
They don't go in because they want to, but. You call it an escape plan, a backdoor plan. You need to save money. You need to have a way out. You need to find people that'll help you. And when it comes down to something like that, I don't care what you say or how you do it. If you have to lie, if you have to hide things, you have to do whatever it takes to make it so that you've got a way out.
Yeah. That's right.
So
that's just the thing.
Hiding money, calling someone when they're not around, and making your plan, whatever it takes.
Yeah.
And tell them you're going to the store and go somewhere else. That's what I mean by I'm not advocating lying, but I'm saying tell them one thing and do something else to get out of there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that was one of the that was actually mentioned on that having a safety plan. They said have a code word. you could actually set up a code word with your whoever's your support person outside of the home, right? And then if you phone them and you actually say the code word, then they know to phone the police. So I thought that was a good idea.
Yes, to escape.
You know? Yeah,
to get out of there.
So, and it's just sad that it has to get to that point, where it escalates to that point. I mean, and that's what, I mean, it just breaks my heart to see that this is going on, and it just keeps going on. And you know it's going to continue to go on. And that's why it's, you know, if that's going to happen, we need to there needs to be more awareness raised for people who are suffering in an abusive home, whether it's a male, female, child, you know, that to get them the help they need. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep, so I commend you for what you're doing. The awareness being brought out about these types of things. A few decades ago, there was so much that was kept hidden from the world. It was always the dirty, dark secrets, whether it involves suicide or anything that was a taboo in society.
Yeah, that's right. Well, that's kind of what, I mean, I experienced that too, you know, in my own life. One of my brothers committed suicide. And, you know, he was a drug user, but, you know, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, but see, I know how I know what led to that. It wasn't just the drugs, but a lot of people were like, oh, well, you know, he was just a drug user, and that's all. And I'm thinking, no, because you didn't see what was going on behind the scenes. You know what I mean? It was not just the drugs.
Right.
It was a life of abuse and a childhood full of abuse, and but see, people don't want to look at that. They don't want to push that under the carpet, right?
There's despair, there's hopelessness, there's feelings of having no future and no choices, no options.
Yeah, that's right. And just a lack of self-worth and just everything. Yeah, just depression, really big time depression. Yeah.
Yep.
So I know it's bad, but no, and I think what you're doing is great too. And if people now, I gave that information out the other day, and if someone wants to go to your website, it's parents. Maybe you can just tell us about.
Well, Parents of Murdered Children is a national organization. We have chapters in many major cities throughout the United States and some overseas. The national website is pomc.org. And on the national website, there's a link at the top that lists the chapters.
Right, and they just click on that.
And then you can find a chapter. If you call our national office, all the information's on the national website, pomc.org or pomc.com. They go to the same one. You can call our office. They will help you find someone in your area. Anyone that's dealing with grief and loss, it's a homicide. It doesn't matter if you're the mother, father, spouse, a friend, a neighbor. Parents of Murdered Children is for anyone that's affected by the homicide. It was started out for the parents, but it includes friends and family. That's
awesome. I saw that when I went on there.
Yes.
And I just thought it was a great website.
Yep. They can help you locate someone near you that's also involved. If there isn't a chapter in your city, there's probably other families that are involved, but there just isn't a chapter there. So they can put you in contact with people. Our Minnesota website, we have one, I think you saw it, that I put together, but it's got a lot of information that we've gleaned. I've been part of it since 1995.
Oh, yeah.
I've had 2 children murdered. One was in 1973, one was in 1995.
Oh, my heart just goes out to you.
Now I have 8 grandchildren and 2 great-grandchildren.
Well, that's awesome. Well, we've got about 60 seconds here left on the show. And, yeah, what would you suggest if someone they just have to go on the website, and if they need some help, just click on there and just telephone or...
They can call our national office, and they'll walk them right through helping them find whatever they need. As far as dealing with homicides. But I really support you and the things you're doing for people involved in abusive situations of all different forms. It's all about awareness and just being able to talk about it and letting them know that they're not alone in their stuff.
That's right.
And that there is choices and options, that they just don't know what they are.
That's right.
Please explore them and continue with what you're doing. And I give you tons of kudos for doing that.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Well, I'm glad to be able to do it. That's what I thought. I'll do it as long as I can. So the show's just about over. And I thank you for phoning in. That's awesome. And you're just more than welcome anytime, Chris. Anytime at all.
Well,
you
thank
take care.
Larry.
You too. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Well, everyone, that was Chris Edmund Dahl, and he is he's got a website there. He's a member of the Parents of Murdered Children, and I'd suggest you go on the website if you know anyone who's suffering from grief, and or just needs a hand.